what is Mochi to you? How did it kind of start, and where did it come from?
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost, I think Mochi is all of those people that you've already interviewed. So I think it's great that I'm coming in kind of late because this project, um, in short, is really not about me or anybody that really started it. It's about this community of people that have been together now for almost 3 years and probably extending before that in the origins of this. So Mochi started, um, I would say like the first ideas of it extend past beyond those 3 years. And this really started kind of as a dance party of a lot of really early crypto people that were there at kind of like the foundational stage of Ethereum. Many of us living in New York City. And what we noticed together was that there was a severe lack of cultural um, kind of programming happening in the space. Most events mostly centered around bars and drinking. And we just kind of, enjoyed partying in a different kind of way. And it really started as like a couple of dance parties and some dinner parties between a group of people and slowly evolved into something a bit more serious.
Mm-hmm.
Now Mochi does a lot of things and does a bit more than just throw parties. We build a lot of tech. So Mochi is also what we call a coordination game that helps DAOs and decentralized teams stick together. So it's one part a cultural project and it's one part a technical project, and those two things form what I would call the DAO of Mochi.
When you say DAO is this is one of the things that I thought was interesting with, like, as I got into the crypto space, just kept on hearing DAO because it's decentralized autonomous organization, but I always heard it from like the perspective of like Taoism and like the Tao of doing things, or the Tao of doing things, the way of trying to live like in a harmonious way. I don't know how intentional that was. It seems like there's a lot of like messaging and iconography that's like mixed in the crypto world, crypto metaverse narrative. And I imagine part of it is intentional, and I'm curious as to how much of it is unintentional and coincidental.
Yeah, I think we should allow ourselves space for happy accidents and serendipity in our lives, but some things do end up being intentional, and I think the DAO thing is very intentional. There's we're working fundamentally what I would call spiritual, magical kind of space, dream space, if you will. And
are you talking about like the Mochi community specifically, or like people in like Web3?
Yeah, I would say like Web3 and probably deeper crypto, and even before that, there were other ways of conceptualizing the space. Web3 is a relatively new term that's kind of popped up in the last, well, not popped up, but like has taken hold in the last year. Before that, most people just referred to it as crypto, and some people reacted to that or thought it wasn't broad enough. And before that, we were trying to make blockchain a word, and that wasn't a word. And trying to explain what that was to people was a big challenge. But I would say, what's common across the space is that like you have to take really complex, strange, abstract ideas and boil it down to these tiny 3-letter acronyms. And DAO was one of the first ones, and in fact the whole space could even be conceptualized as a DAO. But I don't think it's a mistake that it's tied to kind of like different ideas that draw from Eastern mythology or Eastern belief systems. There's a very serious streak of esotericism in crypto that's present if you look deep enough. And yeah, that's probably one of my favorite parts of this. But yeah, I take the term DAO very literally, and obviously it's evolving to kind of take its own, it's taking its own life, or not taking its own life, it's taking on its own life, but there is something to kind of the yin and the yang, the dark and the light, of this concept of DAO that I think is very real and meaningful in the concept of thinking, in terms of thinking about how new organizations should be formed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's part intentional, part